everybody. Welcome to day 2 of the masterclass on how we sabotage our love, how we sabotage our own desires and birthright for pleasure, for sovereignty, for our own inner love and our strength. Right? It's a topic that I really, it's like my meat and potatoes. Hi, Alif. Thanks for watching. Again, if you're watching, please say hi. I love being connected. I love feeling connected with all of you and answering your questions and seeing your comments. So please comment. And again, if you comment, you get a chance to win a one-on-one intensive with me, where we get to do some one-on-one work together to really get at these issues and get some clarities on how to move forward and what to do and how to change our patterns. Hi, Caitlin. Thank you so much for watching. Hi, John. Salutations right back. So I'm a little bit low energy today, and I want to presence that. I want to be in honor of that, in my truth around that. And so please bring your questions. Please bring yourselves. Showing up is the majority of the work, actually. And so, yeah, you have a chance to win a one-on-one week intensive with me. And then also, if you're watching this, everybody who's watching this gets a 10% discount to my new group coaching program that I'm launching in March. And I'm launching this program, number one, to get more people, because my schedule currently is booked with one-on-one clients. And I have just one space open in March. And so I want more people. I want to do the work with more people. And I also want it to be more affordable for people. Because of course, this is personal investment. Although we have so many blocks and barriers about being worth it, being worth the investment, I understand how difficult it is sometimes to do and to create that reality. So it's important for me to also offer coaching in a way that is more accessible to more people, and yet as potent and as strong. I'm going to talk about that at the end, because group therapy, group processing is like, poof, it's like so powerful and so transformative in ways that we don't even imagine, you don't even know. So yesterday, right, we talked about how we attract, project, and provoke. Right? Leaf, it's so nice to connect with you as well. Yesterday we talked about how we attract, project, and provoke our old same stories. I love you too. I love you too, James. Oh, I'm so happy that people are like coming on board. Yeah, it's funny because yesterday I was like high energy and I was like this, and then I felt like there wasn't much of a response. And I actually went through a process around it. I'm like, oh, am I feeling unloved? Am I feeling unseen? And today I'm really showing up in my truth, and I'm feeling so connected with you. So it's really wonderful. Yeah, so back to the stuff. It's all the stuff. It's all medicine. We attract, project, and provoke our old stories, our old patterns. We reinforce them. We line up our present experiences behind our past experiences, so that the amygdala part of our brain can be like, aha, I told you so. It's not safe. They're always going to be like this. Yeah, this is how you keep safe and how you survive. And we're going to get into this. So today we're going to talk about, what do we do about this? Like, how do we change? What's the path forward? Are we just stuck in a rinse repeat cycle of despair and victimhood forever, or is there a way out? There's a way out. Caitlin says, today I got my hold sacred bleed. Feeling low energy today. Hope everyone's day has been good so far. Thank you, Caitlin. So, and Karen Bushbaum is giving you a heart hug telepathically. Oh, thank you, Karen. I love it. Holy, yeah. Yeah, it's important to show up where we are, and if we're low energy, saying that, acknowledging that, telling, wherever we are in relationship right now, in relationship with you, being like, I'm kind of tired. I'm kind of low energy. I've had, 3 clients today, and I gave them my all, and I'm a little bit tired. And showing up in this place of vulnerability, is really powerful because it makes us feel connected, and it makes us feel like we can see each other and understand each other a little bit more instead of false expectations, right? So what do we do about this place where we attract, project, and provoke same old stories, right? So the way that we rewire our brain, rewire the neural networks, do things differently, starts with getting curious, right? Getting curious. That is like, being curious is like being curious about ourselves, being curious about the experience of the other. This is like this place of empathy. It's like the key. Once we start wanting to be curious, the whole thing just unfolds. So in terms of getting curious, we have these two parts of the brain, right, that show up very differently in relationship. One part, and you may have heard this, I'm sure you know this, or you know something about this. So the first part of the brain is called the amygdala. It's like the reptilian part of the brain. Some people say it's reptilian. It's the survival mode of the brain. If you work with medicine, so for example, if you work with DMT-based medicines like ayahuasca really targets a lot the amygdala part of the brain. So it's the place where there's the flight or fight response. You know, some people say fight, flight, freeze, fawn, fa, 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 fa. We live in a dual world. We can either move towards or we can move back, you know. And when the freeze is really about moving back. So we can either fight or flight, right? Hi, Dakota. Beautiful to see you, sister. Hi, Alex. Thank you for watching. And this part of the brain, the amygdala, it is run by a little voice that I like to call, that we call it core energetics, the inner critic. This inner critic, if you get curious and you start paying attention to what's happening inside, the inner critic loves blame, shame, or guilt. The other or ourselves. Somebody is bad. Somebody is wrong. Somebody is responsible for me feeling my feelings. For me feeling these things which I do not want to feel. Either I'm bad or they are bad, right? This place of inner critic. If we start paying attention to this voice of inner critic, we may come to a realization that the inner critic has been running the show for a long time. The inner critic is like this radio that is like da 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 da, and in the past this and this and that, and it may sound like this, right? And I'm so glad I have my notes that I prepared so that I can be tired and show up in all of my and give you all of my best, right? There was somebody that wrote me once after I did a masterclass. I was like, I can't believe you were looking at the notes all the time. You should know better than look at the notes. And I'm like, no, I want to have my notes. This is how I show up for people. I prepare. I think about what I want to say so that it's not just a jumbled mess of verbal diarrhea. You're very welcome, Caitlin. Caitlin says, my recent inner critic has been so loving. Wonderful. Wonderful. So the inner critic might sound like this. If only you could just pick up after yourself, I wouldn't have to get angry and I would want to have sex with you. If you just see how great and full of potential our relationship could be, you would want to commit to me. Yeah, things like this. Or, I'm not lovable. Love is something for other people, but it's not for me. I can't do this. I can't have sex, pleasure in sex. You know, other people can experience pleasure. I can't. It's not for me. I'm way too much for someone to love me. I always react in the wrong way. I'm too much for people to love me. And here's one more. Here's like the trick one. It's all my parents' fault that I'm so anxious. If they didn't scream at me when I was younger, I could form healthy relationships as an adult. Yeah? If you could just answer my text, I would be laid back and give you space. If you just answer my text, I would be laid back and I would give you space. Or, if you would just give me a little bit of space, then I would want to show up for you in relationship. Yeah. Any of these are resonating? Yeah. If these resonate, you can just show up a hand. Or if you have another way that the inner critic shows up in your life, please comment. You know, the way that we experience things are so shared. Bob says, I'm not attractive in that way. Beautiful, Bob. Thank you so much for your vulnerability. Yeah, I'm not attractive in that way. What a difficult feeling. Wow, what's that? The inner critic so strong. Yeah. So with the inner critic, somebody is bad. Yeah. Caitlin writes, I can relate to all those in the past. I no longer have those inner critic thoughts. Well, Mauve, I still have some of these thoughts. Well, I'm thinking the Mauve is maybe I still have some of these thoughts. Yeah, so, you know, we all have an inner critic inside of us. It's just about how much consciousness we have around that voice. You know, how much we let that voice run the show without really being curious about that voice. Number one, who does that voice sound like? Yeah. Oftentimes it sounds a lot like mom or dad. Yeah. Who does that voice sound like? When does that voice rear its ugly head? Yeah. Blaming parents is present still. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a big one. We have to move through it. In fact, we have to move through this place of unpacking the stuff around the parents, the inner child wounding, to show up in a place of sovereignty around it. This is a place we have to move through, right? Yeah. So this is a trap. This is a mask. This is the rinse repeat. The inner critic is responsible for rinse repeat. If we blame, shame, or guilt ourselves or the other, we're never going to get out of this trap. Hi, Mary. Hi, Mary. Caitlin says, my inner critic fears not being able to find a spiritual man who's gentle as a father to future kids of mine. Yeah. Lots of fear in the inner critic, absolutely. Yeah. So it's an old story. The inner critic, what the inner critic does, and the inner critic is really good at this, and this is also partially why we're such a good species, like we're so good at survival as a species, is because we relate the present to the past. So for example, if you got burnt if you stuck your hand into the pretty shiny fire and you got burnt, you know, the amygdala is going to be telling you next time you see a fire, that's going to hurt. Don't stick your hand into the shiny fire. And you're not going to. You're going to preserve the integrity of your hand. Works wonderful for the hand. Not so much for relationships if the beginnings were, we didn't get our needs met correctly, right? If in the family of origin, right? So, so the mind, the inner critic, anticipates danger through relating the present to the past, right? And there's another voice. And this other voice is the voice that is the way out. And this other voice is the non-judgmental conscious observer. This is the voice that actually we train in yoga, right? In meditation. I work with quite a lot in core-energetic psychology and somatic experiencing psychology. The non-judgmental conscious observer is curious, is very curious. No one is bad, yeah? It's just observing what happened and going, I'm angry. Interesting. I see that the other person is angry. And then you can reflect back. I see that you're angry. You're not bad for being angry, right? And the non-judgmental conscious observer uses this thing that I like to call the emotional compass. And this emotional compass has 4 directions: anger, sadness, fear, joy, right? These emotions are designed to take us home. They're there for a reason. Our emotions are there for a reason. These 4 emotions, anger, sadness, fear, joy, there are relating superhighways. They were created at a very young age, before the age of 6. And these emotions are the ones that babies, little children, can tell by looking at the faces of their caregivers. So they really quickly learn how to react and respond to anger, sadness, fear, joy, and how to process it inside their bodies, right? So right now, What are you feeling? Or a combination of anger, sadness, fear, joy. Anybody know? Be free to write it down. I would love to hear it if you write it down. 90% of people, like in general, including me, like 90% of the people, 90% of the time are completely unconscious of what's happening inside them. Yeah? We're just reacting to old stimuli in these unconscious ways from the amygdala part, from the inner critic. We're not in the frontal cortex, which is where the non-judgmental conscious observer lives. The non-judgmental conscious observer lives in the frontal cortex lobes, where we process emotions, where we process empathy, where we process curiosity, where we process play, very high mammalian quality play, pleasure, absolutely. All of these things. Bob says joy, beautiful. Caitlin, feeling excited and gratitude today, and gratitude today, a little bit of resentment. Beautiful. So I just want to comment on that really quickly. So excited and gratitude are beautiful qualities. I would lump them into the joy category. I always work with people in this very young place because we are rewiring very young neural networks in the brain. So joy, excitement and gratitude, joy. Resentment is a tricky one. Resentment doesn't get into these categories. Resentment is actually a repression of emotion. A lot of times, resentment can be a repression of anger, but it could also be a repression of fear. Anxiety is usually a repression of fear. It could also be a repression of sadness. But when we turn our emotions against ourselves and we block the energy flow inside of us because we're bad, that's the place of resentment. It's like, I don't want to feel this place, so I'm going to resent it. Yeah, repression of anger. Beautiful, Caitlin. Beautiful. Yeah. So it's like, what are you feeling when you're waiting for a romantic interest or a partner to text you back? What are you feeling? Anger, sadness, fear, joy. And can we tolerate these places? Sometimes, the fear gets too much and we're like, I can't, press. And then we're like, oh no, what did I do? Why did I do that? Yeah, we don't want to feel this fear. It's too much to tolerate. So the way that I work is, like Elif says right now, what if we don't repress fear and feel it? Absolutely. So we absolutely feel it. It's really good. The trick with feeling it is that a lot of times it becomes like a mental exercise and we're not feeling it in our body. Our body is cut off, right? So tolerating these feelings, feeling them, it's about feeling them in our bodies, it's about empowerment. It's about taking our lives back, about manifesting things on purpose, but it has to be in our bodies. It's creating relationships that we want, accessing our states of pleasure, about vulnerability. All these things are available to us if we are in our bodies. If we're not in our bodies, we're in story, right? Caitlin says, I feel joy and fear while waiting for a text response from a lover. I feel both at the same time. Beautiful, beautiful, yeah. So all of these things, they're available to us only when we're in our bodies. And when we're not in our bodies, we're in a story, we're in a mental loop. It's usually about the past, processing the past or anticipating the future. And we're in this rinse repeat inner critic place in the amygdala, not in the frontal cortex. We can't get our needs met there. We can't create our lives on purpose. We can't form deep connections. We can't be curious. It's a space of fight or flight, right? So the secret sauce in the work that I do, in why I'm showing up here, the secret sauce of how I work with people is the somatic work. I'm a core energetics practitioner. It's very deep bioenergetic work. It's connecting the body, the mind, the emotional body, and importantly, the spirit. I'm a deeply spiritual person. Spirit is connected in all the ways with our body, in all the ways with our emotions, in all the ways with our mental structure. It's all integrated. we are just as much animal as we are spirit. You know, I used to travel a lot and do a lot of inner work in India, in the East, especially. You know, in South Asia, Southeast Asia, where spirit is given a lot of importance. You know, so a lot of meditation, a lot of spiritual practices that are not really integrated with the body a lot. I mean, yoga is, but even in yoga, you know, even in the Yoga Sutras, the body just gets you prepared for meditation, right? It's like the body is a vehicle for spirit. And spirit has this more like superior place than the body. And then I started working a lot more in South America with medicine, with Tantra, integrating matter and spirit, our animal and our soul, all of this. And so embodiment is how we access our safety, our pleasure, and our manifestation, right? As an embodied being, we have this kind of 3-tier journey: safety, pleasure, and then conscious manifestation. We can't access pleasure unless we feel safe, either in sex, in relationships, at whatever. Once we can access our pleasure, we can consciously manifest our life, right? Caitlin says, thank you for choosing those paths of study and for sharing your knowledge. Thank you, Caitlin, for being here and being and commenting and hearing it. I feel so seen and heard. Thank you. So that's kind of how we are. That's the secret sauce. And we can't do any of this without being in our body. So how I work with people, you know, it's core energetics. It's a little bit different from these other modalities like somatic experiencing or whatever. We tap into the feelings. We de-armor. We show up in these authentic, raw, sovereign places that we don't want to show up in. That we've trained ourselves for how many ever decades of our lives that to not feel, to cut off, to be small. Yeah? So it's like, what does it feel to get really angry if you haven't been allowed to get angry as a child and all your life you've repressed your anger? How does it feel to beat a pillow and yell and get angry, get really angry and feel the energy start moving? Because here's the thing. Once we cut off one of these feelings, one of these emotions, we cut off them all. And then we cut off the energy flow. And when we cut off the energy flow, we stop feeling alive. We get constricted. Yeah, I used to walk around like this all the time. True story. I still catch myself and I de-armor. You know, like walking around like this, protecting the heart. Protecting the heart, right? I can tell a lot about, because of my training, not because I'm magic or anything, because of my training, I can tell a lot. I get a lot of information about a person's armoring, about the way that they show up in the world, their masks, their strategy for getting love, their strategy for connecting with people or not, just by the way that they look, their body structure. It tells a lot. Yeah, so this is really the secret sauce about how to de-armor our bodies in a way where we can feel more empowered, where the energy flows freely, where we can be more conscious and pay attention to the non-judgmental conscious observer and not the inner critic at a time when we get triggered. You know, because all of this is wonderful if we're listening into it on Facebook. And then we show up with our partner and our partner didn't take out the garbage in the time that we wanted to. You know, I'm being exaggerated. And we're triggered. And it's all over. And we feel unloved. And we're back to our 5-year-old. Yeah? Our wounded little 5-year-old. So how do we stay conscious? How do we stay conscious? We stay conscious by being in our body, by feeling our emotions. Our memories are stored in the body. Our trauma, feelings, armor, you know, the anger, the fear, they all live in our bodies. And digging deep and feeling these places, that's the secret. That's what separates my work from the work of a lot of coaches, a lot of therapists. You know, we can't change anything by staying in our heads and breaking the stuff up in our heads. And to be honest, like, I love doing these master classes, and I think they're a really important first step for a lot of people. Just like self-help books. Really, really important, you know? This is stuff where I love giving. I love giving this stuff because it starts the mind thinking. It starts being like, oh, I do this. Oh, I don't do this. I can relate. I cannot relate. But to really change it, to like really uproot it, to rewire our brain and create new neural pathworks that go different ways than the rinse repeat of fight or flight, we actually have to do the work that is difficult, that is uncomfortable. We have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that is embodied. And that is what I do with people. It's not easy, but I haven't met a single person who regretted it, who hasn't gotten like the gifts of it. More gifts than they, excuse me, more gifts than they thought they would. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking to you about how to do this work, and it's like, okay, I really resonate with this. Like, I want to be embodied. I want to go on a deep dive. I want to go on a journey. Like, what do I do? Well, starting in March 3rd, I just launched it. I'm offering a small group embodied somatic process group. This is very different than like a group coaching program where everybody gets on Zoom and I talk and you sort of listen and then you sort of ask things. That's not how it's going to be. It's going to be very embodied. It's going to be processing. Everybody's going to be going to have a chance, a lot of chances to process their stuff and to show up in their stuff and move their energy and move their body and feel these places in their bodies. Take up space, huge one for people. I had one person say, I don't know if I want to do the group thing because I'm not really good at taking up space in groups. And I'm like, well, what a better reason than join this group? Because to learn how to take up space. Caitlin says, are you still taking one-on-one clients? Great question, Caitlin. So I am taking one-on-one clients. I have one spot, and I also have a wait list as well after that one spot, because somebody might, let's get in touch. Hop on a clarity call with me. I'd love to talk to you. And if anybody has any interest or questions, hop on a clarity call with me. But I'm really excited about this group because I've been part of process groups for like 3 or 4 years now. And I do individual work as well. And process groups get you to feel really, really a lot, really, really quickly. There's probably going to be that one person in the group that somehow triggers you. And what better medicine than to show up in that place and process that with that individual and realize, maybe it's not about that individual. Maybe they remind me of the way that like my dad overpowered me when I was little, and have this deep healing that makes you feel even closer to that person that triggered you at the beginning, And that's how we do relationships. Actually, we process our trauma. We understand where it's coming from, and we are able to get closer to people instead of doing the rinse repeat of anxiety or running away, both of which are like, you change, It's like, it's not about you. It's about my childhood. Yeah, it's not you. But I get to have my feelings. I get to have my feelings. Yeah, it's really fun. We're going to start out every session with a little bit of embodied dancing. See how it feels to feel in your power and like move together. When one person is processing, everybody else isn't hanging out and just sort of like looking at their phone. Yeah. Everybody is processing too. Everybody's non-judgmental conscious observer is on and paying attention about what's happening in their own body. How are they getting affected by that other person? Because in groups, in relationship especially, but in groups, it's like really a lot. We really get affected by people. We really get affected. And as one of my mentors said, we regress really quickly. And which is great. It's great that we regress quickly in groups because then we can work on this stuff. Bob says, I fear the group will hold me accountable, which is why I'm going. Yes, Bob. I'm so glad you're going, and I'm so glad to hold you accountable and have everybody hold each other accountable. So we're going to talk, the 3 topics that we're going to process are going to be inner child healing and family of origin wounding, unpacking all of that inside of ourselves, not in theory. Boundaries and safety, how to show up with our boundaries in relationship to feel safe so that we can access our pleasure, feel connected. And sovereign expression, yeah? How do we take responsibility for our own needs and get them met? When I work with clients, I tell everybody up front, I'm not responsible for what we do in session. So every session, my clients are responsible for bringing what they want to bring and getting their needs met. It's really good practice for relating. Of course, I facilitate, I hold the container, I do a lot of the work, it's really strongly facilitated, and but I'm not directing the flow of what you need. I don't know what you need. You're responsible for bringing your needs. And I support my clients, I help my clients, I coach my clients in and bringing their needs to the table so that we can work them, unpack them, process them, and get their needs met. So everybody who's watching, the code 10%, you get 10% off. The code is Hearts10. I'm going to put a clarity call link. Please schedule a clarity call with me if you're interested. I'm not taking anybody's enrollment without a 30-minute clarity call intake to make sure that this is a good fit. The expectations on both sides are aligned. And I can't wait to see you there, and you get 10% off. And Caitlin says, I want to join. Caitlin, I want you to join too. It's going to be amazing. I'm so excited. So Hearts10. And all my love, I actually have to jump on a supervision call. As a best practice in the industry, I have a supervisor. Every practitioner should have a supervisor. It's a way of holding accountable, of bringing the in-session stuff and getting feedback on it and making sure I'm in service to my clients in the best way. I spend a lot of resources having the support, the training, the expertise, the knowledge, the ability to show up for the way that I show up for my clients, including supervision, which does not matter how many years you've been in the practice. It's just a way of holding yourself accountable to best practices and humility and love. Yeah, so you get two people's expertise and knowledge and perspective. All my love, brothers and sisters. I can't wait to see you. Please sign up for a free intake clarity call, and I can't wait to see you there.